What would you do if the person who gave you life was the same person who stole your future? Today, a 21-year-old son takes his own mother to court for a $10,000 betrayal that started before he was even an adult. Our plaintiff today is Sorrel Jones, a young man who looks like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He has come to this courtroom to sue his own mother, Lakeisha Williams, for a cold-hearted act of betrayal, using his identity to sign a lease and then failing to pay the rent. Lakeisha's irresponsibility left behind a mountain of unpaid bills, creating a staggering financial burden of nearly $10,000 and absolutely tanking Sorrel's credit score before his adult life could even begin. The truth only came to light when Sorrel turned 19. While checking his credit report, he was blindsided by several suspicious transactions dating back to late 2021 and early 2022.
This lease was signed when you were how old?
17 years old.
And how do you know that?
When I went to check my credit report, it had the date, which was around 2021, edging into 2022, the end of 2021.
You went and checked your credit score.
To untangle this web of financial deceit, Judge Judy demands that Sorrel provide the official debt statements and a copy of the lease agreement. The paperwork is clear. The dates align perfectly with Sorrel's story.
Just show me what I asked for.
Okay.
The letter that you got indicating how much money you owed after you checked your credit score.
Okay. These 2 pages would be it.
Okay. Now, do you have a copy of the lease? That's a simple thing. That's what you should have, a copy of the lease.
No.
Do you have a copy of the lease?
Yes.
Did you get a copy of the lease? I'd like to see
Yes.
it, please.
Here's the lease.
Then, Judy moved on to taking testimony from the mother, Lakeisha. She reveals she had spent 8 years behind bars, only tasting freedom in July 2021. After a brief stay in a shelter, she saved up enough money for a decent apartment.
Let's start with, it's true that you were living in this address, and you were living there shortly after you were released from prison.
Yes.
How long were you in prison?
8 years.
In what month and year were you released?
2021, July 2021.
Where did you live immediately after your release? Were you in a halfway house?
Yeah, for a couple months.
I want you to tell me the circumstances. You tell me the circumstances surrounding your son signing this lease, because that's what you allege.
Yeah,
Look at me. Don't look there.
Okay.
Right here.
She had the cash, but for reasons beyond her control, she couldn't put her own name on the lease. For effort, she turned to her little son, Sorrel, who was only 17 years old at the time, and borrowed his signature. She claimed it was only fair since she had raised her children to adulthood.
Were in prison for 8 years. Your children took care of themselves. He was a young teenager when you went to prison. You get out of prison, you go to a halfway house. You probably had some sort of a job, because you're supposed to have some sort of a job.
Yeah, and I saved money to get an apartment.
Great. I want you to look at me and tell me the circumstances surrounding your son signing the lease.
So I asked him to help me because I couldn't do it on my own.
How old was he when you asked him to help you?
He was going on 18 or 18.
Well, was he 17 or 18?
I think he was
17 or
17.
18?
Okay, he was 17. And I asked him if he would help me because...
Okay, you understand that at 17, he cannot sign a contract. You were 17 at the time.
And I asked him if he would help me because considering I raised him and 3 children on my own.
But Judge Judy is quick to cut her off, pointing out the cold, hard truth that she cannot claim herself raised her children when she was in prison for 8 years during the time they needed a mother most.
17, he cannot sign a contract. You were 17 at the time.
Like,
So I mean, you knew he was 17.
He said he would help.
You knew he was 17.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that you can't sign a contract when you're 17 that's binding. Raise him. You were in jail for 8 years. If you got out when he was 17, you went into jail when he was 9 years old. Who raised him?
My sister.
Okay, well, that's your sister raised him.
But Lakeisha found a way around the rules. She used her own driver's license as proof, and when the electronic contract hit her email, she had Sorrel sign his name right alongside hers.
Now, you showed him a driver's license. Whose driver's license?
I showed them mine, and then they sent me the lease over like electronic, and I signed it with my name, and then I asked him to sign it with his name, and he signed it.
Electronically how?
Because
Let's go. Electronically how? It came to you on your tablet or whatever, and you do that sign thing that she helps me with?
yeah,
Because I'm unable to do it myself.
and he
And he was there?
Yeah.
He was there and he signed it electronically. You know, you can't even tell me that story with a straight face.
After the one-year contract was signed, Lakeisha lived in the apartment and paid rent regularly for 11 consecutive months. But in the 12th month, the money dried up. Lakeisha couldn't pay, couldn't get an extension, and she had to plead guilty to the judgment. That single decision triggered a $3,805 credit under Sorrel's name.
How much money did you pay them back?
pay who?
The landlord.
No, I already paid rent up to 11 months. And then on the last month, I couldn't pay it because I didn't have the funds. And so then I had talked to the judge, and I asked the judge if he could give me a little time, but it wasn't enough time. And so I left from there, and that's what happened.
Lakeisha claims she tried to get a lawyer to remove his name from the debt, but the law doesn't work that way. The damage was done.
So you called the law firm and you said, he can't be held responsible. He was only 17.
Yeah, and I said, then you need to take him off.
And?
And they didn't do it. And I said, but that's not right. That I should
Just
only
a
be
second.
responsible.
So you did have a conversation with someone at the law firm?
I did.
Tell me who you had a conversation with.
With the guy that's over the law firm, that runs the law.
Name?
I can't remember his name, but I know he's the one. I said, Sorrel allowed me to do it, and that his name needs to come off of there.
Because he was only 17?
Yes.
Okay, good.
But the plot thickens. Just when $3,805 seemed heavy enough, Sorrel drops a bombshell. His credit report actually shows a debt of $9,980, nearly $10,000.
The judgment, $3,805. Is that correct?
The judgment on my credit?
Yeah.
No, the judgment should have been for $9,980.
Can I see that, please? Because all I have
Yes.
here
I
is,
think that's the non-payment of rent.
Yes, because there was also property damage.
I don't see that.
Well, I have pictures.
No, I don't want to see pictures.
Sorry.
I want to. This is the only letter that I have.
Okay.
That indicates that the amount of $3,805 was entered as a judgment. Do you have any other
Yeah.
documentation that the judgment was more extensive than that?
Yes, I have the credit check with the judgment on there.
He had a credit report, but that document wasn't convincing enough, so Judge Judy didn't consider it sufficient evidence.
This doesn't do anything for me.
Okay.
This doesn't do anything for me. This is the only thing that says that this is what this law firm is trying to collect from you on this matter, which is $3,805.
Seeing the numbers clash, Judge Judy instructs her assistant, Sarah, to call the finance company and get the real total.
Sarah, call them and tell them they're going to be happy because on behalf of their client, they're going to get this amount. Just want to make sure that that's the amount of the judgment. Would you do that for me?
Sure. Could I see his driver's license, too?
Yeah. While Sarah's making that call,
While they wait for confirmation, the narrative takes a darker turn. It's revealed that Lakeisha is also facing over $6,000 in fines for vandalizing. Her excuse? She claims she was under extreme stress, a hollow and heartless justification for destroying a home.
well, you moved out of the apartment and you didn't pay the last month's rent, and the landlord must have sent you communication, which you received. And when the case went to court, you called in telephonically
Yeah, because
and
I was-
pled guilty.
Yeah.
To what?
Owing the money.
Owing what money?
That was from the apartment.
How much?
It was $9,000 something, but that's because of the vandalism.
Did you vandalize the property?
We both did
Why?
because I was stressed out.
Well, if you were stressed out, then you vandalized the property.
No, I mean, we did it, but I was stressed out because of everything that was going on. Me and the property management didn't get along, and
Did you live there with your mother?
No, I didn't vandalize any property. I don't know where we is coming from, but
She even tries to drag Sorrel down with her, claiming he also took credit for vandalizing. But Sorrel's brother, Xavier, steps up as a witness to shut that lie down immediately.
Tell me your name.
Xavier Williams. I'm the brother of Sorrel.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
When your mother was living in this apartment, where was your brother living?
He was actually bouncing out of my house sometimes maybe a month into, I believe, one of his friends, and I know my aunt for sure, but I didn't actually want to pressure him or question him too much on the matter. I just kind of heard what I heard and kind of like, just very disappointing and like just sad in a total, but Sorrel is like a good stand-up guy. Never been like this type of person. Even all the vandalism and the stuff I've seen is just insane. I would never see that from him. So even hearing that again is just kind of outrageous. So
Yeah, the whole thing is kind of outrageous.
yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
You can have a seat.
Yes, ma'am.
Xavier.
well, people
At this point, Judge Judy is nearly speechless at the mother's callousness. She demands to know why Lakeisha didn't try to negotiate a payment plan instead of dumping this life-altering debt on her son's back. With a credit score this low, Sorrel's future is in jeopardy from job applications to buying a car or a home.
Why don't you start paying them?
it was only 1 month.
Why don't you start paying the law firm?
No, because-
that would satisfy. You pled guilty to the judgment. That's what you did. You acknowledged that. It says so in the documentation that telephonically you pled guilty to breaching your lease. So my question to you is, if you work, why don't you say to the law firm, or didn't you say to them a year or more ago when this whole thing happened, I will pay you $50 a month. I'll pay you $100 a month until all of this is paid off. Can we come up with a figure? Instead, you just ignored it. And because you just ignored it, your son, who's just starting his life, is starting his life with a mark that's going to be very, very difficult
But
for
that
him.
wasn't my intention.
Whether it's your intention or not, you have the capacity to fix it. You're an adult. You work.
Lakeisha defends herself by saying she wasn't good at making money and her salary wasn't very good. Yet, she somehow finds the funds to take an Uber to work every single day. The hypocrisy is deafening.
I don't make good money at my job, so I make enough to pay my bills. Like, I don't have extra money for that.
Well, do you have an apartment?
Yeah, and I have,
Just a second. You pay rent to your apartment?
yes,
What kind of work do you do?
a call center.
You work on a call center. Do you have to travel to get to work?
Yes.
How do you get there?
Sometimes I catch an Uber, sometimes I a share ride with the coworker.
So you have money to pay an Uber to get you
Yeah,
to work.
because I have to work in order to pay
Of course.
bills.
Public transportation's not an option for you. Well, I don't know what that look means. I don't know what that look means. You have Uber and you have public transportation. What I'm saying to you is you didn't make an effort to say to the company, I will pay you. I don't care what I do. I'll get an extra job at night for the next year so that I don't encumber my son's credit since he's just starting out in life.
Finally, the moment of truth arrives. Sarah returns with the verified numbers. The debt has indeed ballooned to $9,931.6, including late fees, legal costs, and repairs. It matches Sorrel's report to the penny.
Okay, so he said the 3805 listed in this letter was the initial judgment for the eviction, and that was the judgment. But after that, there was the legal and late fees, the cleaning, and they had not inspected the property yet. So any damages, which there were, is how we got to the $9,931.60, which is what he's on the hook for, and his credit is going to be affected if that is not paid. There was a collection fee that was in addition, a collection fee. I asked him to break down what that $9,931 entailed. From the lease, in the lease agreement, there's a fee for if it has to go to collections, it's a set fee. $2,837 and change was the collection fee, in addition to the 3805. That was just the initial number of what they were charging her for the eviction, which got increased after they did the walkthrough of the apartment and saw damage, cleaning, repairs, legal, and late fee. So all in, it's $9,931.60. And if that gets paid, plaintiff is clear in his credit.
And we can pay that directly to this firm.
I did not ask that question.
Well, let's find out.
Okay.
Lakeisha has walked away from her responsibilities and has no means to pay, leaving Sorrel far too young to carry such a crushing weight. Moved by Sorrel's struggle, Judge Judy makes a definitive stand. She awards the full judgment in favor of the plaintiff. By paying off this $9,931.6 through the court, Sorrel's credit history will finally be wiped clean, ensuring this nightmare won't follow him into his future.
Sort of outrageous. Problem, Mr. Jones, is that I really don't think it's appropriate for me, for the court, or even my clerk, to negotiate with the collection agency, because you can usually negotiate with them to reduce the amount if you pay it up front.
Right.
But I don't think it's appropriate for me to do that if the amount that would be satisfied by the judgment is $9,931. Court will issue the check directly to them on your behalf. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, is that satisfactory to you?
Yes.
Just go back and check for me, will you? That was $9,931.60.
Yep. Yep.
She's pretty persuasive, Sarah.
Yes.
So what did you work out, Ms. Rose?
You can either send a check directly to this address at the bottom, or they could do a card or check by phone.
93160 will clear their...
60 will clear his
clear
credit.
his credit.
Yes, and it'll be wiped from his history.
Judgment for the plaintiff will take care of your credit.
Okay, thank you.
It is a stunning, compassionate victory, a rare moment where the law and heart meet on the bench of Judge Judy. This case stands as a costly reminder to protect and control your own credit score. Never, under any circumstances, allow anyone to sign your name on a legal document, especially a financial one, even if they are your own parents. What are your thoughts on Judge Judy's generous ruling today? Sound off in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to catch more dramatic cases from the Judy Justice series. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.